Welcome back to the Scruffy City Beat. My name is Jillian Taylor, and I'm a storyteller here at the station who tells stories about music, which also happens to be what today's episode is about. Music, but also storytelling, how songs are vehicles for telling stories. We're going to start off this episode by getting a bit conceptual, talking with a local historian about how this has showed up over time, starting with way back when the Odyssey came out, dropped. And then we're going to talk about the Knoxville Girl song and the history behind that song. And then we're going to jump ahead to something modern. There's a musician who's around town who likes to tell stories about their personal history in songs. All that is coming up on this episode of the Scruffy City Beat. So saddle up and listen in to this episode all about storytelling through music. Welcome back to the Scruffy City Beat, where today we are talking about songs as methods for storytelling. And to help us unpack that concept, I'm here with Eric Dawson. Hi, Eric. You came in for the first episode. If folks don't remember, who are you?
That's right. I'm the manager of the McClung Historical Collection at the East Tennessee History Center. A
collector of stories, one might say.
Yeah, that building is full of stories.
Yes. And behind you, hi, Daniel. Daniel's producing for us today. Hey, today we're starting off a little conceptual and then going to go into where this applies to Knoxville, where this ties in here. I want to talk about how people have always told stories through songs, why we do that, the desire we have for it, how we've seen it play out in this area throughout history. And kind of a fun tie-in that you brought up when we were talking the other day was a big movie coming out this weekend that kind of typifies our desire to always put stories into songs. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, well, when you mentioned the topic of this episode, I was like, well, that's good timing because, of course, the big movie of the summer and this weekend is The Odyssey.
The Odyssey.
And before it was a movie, of course, it was a book. And before it was a book, it was actual, oral poem. Mm-hmm. And, there's every reason to think people sang it as well as recited it because the rhyme schemes and the melody, you put something in it, it's more likely to stick in your head. We were just, you were just humming a song, it was like, oh, and you've got an earworm. And it's fun to imagine that parts of the Odyssey were people's earworms thousands of years ago.
Yeah. Makes me think of bards, just the human type of bards, people that travel and tell stories and turn them into songs. And it really is, I think it's maybe just a desire because it makes it more beautiful to relay, but it does stick a lot better. I mean, I don't know why music is like that, but music sticks really well into our brains. I mean, my grandparents perform karaoke at nursing homes, and they say that
really?
Whenever people with memory loss issues, they always are able to hum along to the hymns. Even people who can't remember their name, where they're from, they can remember like the hymns they grew up with because music's just kind of different like that.
Yeah, I've heard similar anecdotes of people, and maybe if they're in comas or unconscious or just aren't responding to things when they have a song played, particularly from their youth, they really react, they smile, or there'll be some sort of movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so can you talk to me about, as we moved past the Odyssey time, now we're in like the early Appalachian history, how some of the types of storytelling that we've seen in songs there. Later in this episode, we're going to listen to the infamous Knoxville Girl murder ballad, which is a type of storytelling that emerged in songs. Can you tell me about some of those types?
Sure. Well, you mentioned ballads, of course, even after books were written and people were recording things in them. Not everyone could read them, right? So one way to have these things stick and have these stories passed down was to write them in songs. And this starts like in Western Europe over into the British Isles, and when the immigration, when people move to the United States, they're bringing these old songs from the old country with them. And inevitably over time, those songs are transformed into more topical songs reflecting what was going on in the neighborhoods and communities within these areas. It's not just Appalachia, of course, it's all over the country, but since we're in Appalachia, there's a really strong tradition of that here. Mentioning the Knoxville Girl, that's one of the more well-known and beloved of this region.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the other songs like Knoxville Girl that are part of folk history here?
Right. Well, and again, these were developed from older European songs. But I was thinking of songs like Tom Dooley, which was a murder ballad, and then in the 50s, the Kingston Trio perform it, and it becomes a hit. So this song that's hundreds of years old gets recorded in the 20s and re-recorded in the 50s is almost like a pop song, and it still has resonance. Stagger Lee, some people may know that song from Lloyd Price's really bombastic, really fun 1950s hit, but it's actually a murder ballad about a pretty bad dude and a pretty bad incident dating back to the 1920s as well.
Yeah, and then, so that's the murder ballad tradition. You also told me about a tradition of disaster songs. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, that was, I guess you might fold in the murder ballads with things such as disaster songs, and that could be a lot of train wrecks were happening, a lot of fires, and also a lot of weather events. There were constant floods, hurricanes, and people would record these songs. I think I think of it almost as like a combination of keeping this historic tradition alive, the ballad, also with something akin to like clickbait, because people would rush into the studio within weeks or months of these events, record them, and release the record, and people would, they sold really well, a lot of these records.
Yeah. I remember that happening whenever Hurricane Helene hit Asheville. Not in a clickbait way. He was raising money. I think Eric Church released a song about the hurricane that was like a resilience song, and they attached like GoFundMe's to it to give money to Asheville.
Yeah. And I don't want to be flip about it with calling it that, but I mean, in the 20s and 30s, if you listen to a lot of these, it does seem like it's the rip from the headline songs. There's maybe not as much time and thought and effort.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that's what they all are.
Yeah.
And I think another good recent example is Bruce Springsteen's Streets of Minneapolis. After the events up there, he recorded a song and released it within a couple of days.
Yeah. It also reminds me of that very first episode that we did in here, talking about the Knoxville sessions. We talked about Leola Manning's
That's right,
Satan's Busy in Knoxville. I don't remember the tune at all. I wish I could hum it. But Satan's Busy in Knoxville, she's like relaying some of the terrible things that have happened.
Satan is Busy in Knoxville, I guess, would be considered something a murder, not necessarily ballad. That's more of a murder gospel tune. But she also did Arcade Building Moan. And that's essentially a disaster song because it's about a fire that killed a lot of people.
Well, can you think of any modern artists that you think really typify classic storytelling through songs? I mean, not just there. Of course, every song is a story, sometimes in a more abstract way. But some artists really do direct storytelling, like relaying of personal or world history in songs. Can you think of any artists that really do that?
Yeah, and I think a lot of those artists come from a folk tradition, or they sort of have that background, or in some cases, Tin Pan Alley. Randy Newman comes to mind as someone who's always telling stories. It's really good. Tom Waits, Joni Mitchell. But then I think of younger people, somebody like Jesse Wells, who got quite popular on TikTok for doing some of these more topical songs that are speaking to the immediate times. Yeah.
Jesse Wells he came from TikTok blowing up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great place for artists to tell a story and it blow up and that story go everywhere.
Right, and I don't really swim in those waters much, but so I can only imagine the kinds of people looking to break through or be the next person like that, who are making up these songs, responding to events happening in the moment.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about how this type of songwriting shows up in Knoxville and surrounding areas, and it just makes me think of Jonesboro.
Storytelling capital of country.
Storytelling capital of I think it says the world.
They say world? Yeah, I was hesitating.
It's either world or country. Let's just say it's country, but it might be world. Jonesboro, we did a road trip video there, my coworker Sarah Ottman and I, and they have something that they do every day at their International Storytelling Center. It's a storytelling session, and they pay an artist to come and live in the town for a week. I think they have an Airbnb that they live in, and they come and perform stories once a day at the Storytelling Center. Comes from a tradition where early on in the town's history, they used to set up hay bales in a barn, and somebody would tell stories, and it was like a regular recurring thing. And somebody, I think, discovered that in their history and decided to make it an official part of how the town expresses itself. So I want to watch one of those clips of one of the storytelling sessions, and it's the tune that I was humming as I was walking in, because he tells a story and then he bursts into song, and it's really catchy. Okay. So let's listen into this guy is named Lipbone Redding. His real name is Lawrence, but he goes by Lipbone Redding because he likes to make vocalizations that sound like instruments.
I found myself traveling around the world with a backpack and a guitar. I found myself standing in the middle of a forest, staying weeks at a time in old growth in Northern California, in the redwoods, in the sequoias, in the jungles, climbing the Himalayas, traveling through India, Southeast Asia. The whole time my grandmother was with me, because when she passed away, I carried her ashes with me. And I remember her saying, all you have to do is show up and be you. Went to a party in the forest. I took a cup of magic tea. Somehow I lost all that I own. I started singing to the trees. And oh, I know it seems strange. Sing with me.
Oh, just sing it.
I know it seems strange. Come on, sing it. Oh, I know it seems strange. The people of the forest keep calling my name.
Storytelling through songs. I don't know why, but like just listening to like he's just telling a story, but listening to any instrumentation behind it, I'm like,
Right.
my whole,
It keeps you locked
I'm
in.
so leaned in. Yeah, I'm so locked into listening to it.
Especially with that repetitive sort of blues riff, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like it makes you sort of nod along or head
Yeah.
along with it. It's funny I mentioned Tom Waits before because that guy's obviously familiar with his oeuvre, and he performs in that manner somewhat. It's almost like a talking blues, or not quite singing, but and in between singing and talking. And this takes us back to where we started. Maybe that's perhaps what these great oral traditions were, where you're doing a poem, you're half reciting, half singing.
Yeah, super cool. Well, thanks for coming in to explain some of that concept to us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Of course. And we're going to take a little break, and then coming back, we're going to talk all about the Knoxville Girl, the surprising history behind it. It's not from Knoxville. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Scruffy City Beat. This week's episode is all about songs as vehicles for storytelling. An important thing to talk about here is the trope of the murder ballad. If you haven't heard about that, we're going to teach you about it. And to do that, hi, Wayne.
Hey.
Can you introduce yourself and what you do here?
Sure. I'm Wayne Bledsoe. I'm a longtime music writer in Knoxville. I was with the Knoxville News Sentinel for 38 years. I write for Blank now, and I have a podcast now called How We Heard It that I co-host with my friend Chuck Campbell. And I have had a radio presence for a long time. Had a couple of shows, the 6 o'clock Swerve and All Over the Road, that were started on WDVX and lasted for a long, long time.
Yeah, a lot of music knowledge in your brain.
a lot of stuff that's music trivia that makes me a real nerd.
Yeah. And am I hearing right that you wrote some kind of book on Knoxville Girl, or there is a book on Knoxville Girl?
No, there's a book called Unprepared to Die by a man named Paul Slade, and he's the person, he lives in England, and he actually tracked down the genesis of the song Knoxville Girl and found the actual murder. He went through church records and
Wow.
eventually found the actual victim and perpetrator.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well, in case you're listening and you have no idea what this is and you're hearing the words murder and Knoxville Girl, we're going to listen for a second. Probably get about 2 verses in. It does get a little gruesome. I don't know if it gets too gruesome in the first 2 verses, but adult content warning. Maybe cover the kid ears after the first 3 lines. Hit it, Daniel.
We went to take an evening walk about in my from town. I picked a stick up from the ground. I knocked that beggar down. She fell upon her bending knees for mercy. She did cry. Will and dear, don't kill me here. I'm not prepared to die. She never spoken of the word that beat
It is such
her
a strange listen because it's a waltz. It's a very waltzes are very pretty, light. That's not what it's about. if you're listening, it's not what it's about.
Well, yeah, I mean, he beats her to death with a stick and throws her into the river to finish the job, and she floats down the river.
And this song has been covered over and over.
Yeah, pretty much every decade. I mean, somebody covers it. This version comes from the 20s, and Kid Tanner and Riley Puckett recorded it originally. Arthur Tanner. They've got the Louvin brothers in the 50s did the most famous version, probably. And then Nick Cave's covered it. The Lemonheads have covered it. I was at the Tennessee Theater. I'd gotten to show Elvis Costello around Knoxville when he came to town.
Oh, cool.
And that night at the Tennessee Theater, he sang Knoxville Girl.
Yeah.
So it's when people didn't know what Knoxville was, a lot of times they still knew Knoxville Girl. That's the only connection anybody had to Knoxville is knowing the song, the Knoxville Girl, which is, a horrifying murder ballad.
Yeah. But the catch here is I understand that the Knoxville Girl song has nothing to do with Knoxville.
Well, the thing is, it was originally written in the 1600s, the late 1600s, and there was a murder in England, and the victim's actual name was Ann Nichols, and the perpetrator's name was Francis Cooper, and that murder became the song "The Bloody Miller," and back in those days, you'd have these balladeers who would go from town to town, and they would sing their songs, and they would sell broadsheets, which were just lyric sheets. And then people would take those broadsheets, and then they'd sing the song, and then they'd go different places. And they would change the lyrics sometimes so that it would fit the town they were in, or a town where another murder had occurred. So it made them more popular. They were kind of the tabloid journalism, of their day. These are real things that happened. But yeah, the broadsheet ballads, there's Barbara Allen, all these classic songs were broadsheets originally.
Are these broadsheets, are they always crime stories like this one, or are they about other news events as well?
There were all sorts of different ones. Sometimes they were political, sometimes they were, just love songs, but most of the time they were ballads, with real drama attached. And the Knoxville Girl, the first iteration is called The Bloody Miller, and they have him as a miller who does the murder. And it's interesting because some versions are more gruesome than others. And in some versions he slashes her throat. In some versions he stabs her in the head.
Oh my! Oh, vivid.
But it's funny because Paul Slade, who, I have tremendous respect for his research on it. He decided that, he feels like that he calls it the DNA of the song is the excuse that the murderer makes, because he goes home and his mother says, "Well, what's all this blood?" And he goes, "Oh, I had a nosebleed."
Really?
Yeah, and that's what has gone through the song from the beginning.
That has remained. That's never changed.
Right.
It's always the nosebleed.
But there's all sorts of other songs. There's a great song. I can't remember the name of it right now. It goes by a lot of different ones. But of a brother who gets his sister pregnant. And once she tells him that she's pregnant, he takes her out and chops her head off.
Wow.
And has blood all over him.
Wow.
And
They're so gruesome.
Oh, yeah. And he comes back and, I think in this, the version I have, I think it's his father who asks him where the blood's from. And he says, "Well, I had to kill my hunting dog."
Your hunting dog?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's weird how these, they're very gruesome and not a song that would otherwise be in somebody's catalog. But I've heard local musicians, when I've talked about this, be like, "Oh, I keep it in my set." They play it in their set because it's just such an iconic thing to play. What's
funny, first time I heard it, I was in the 7th grade, I think, and my drama teacher, John Gilbreth, played it. He would bring his guitar every once in a while and play songs, and he played it, and it was like, oh wow.
Is that why it's lingered and spread and so many different people cover it, because it grabs you because it's so gruesome?
Well, it's part of the gruesomeness. It's also kind of got a nice hook. I mean, it sticks in your head.
Yeah.
You remember that tune. I mean, the original tune is probably quite a bit different, but it's adapted into the kind of the easiest song to sing. I mean, that waltz it's easy to remember the lyrics with that 3/3 thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so murder ballads in general, can you tell me about why that trope became so big, and maybe some of the other ballads that are also in that category?
Well, when you think about just think about what's happening today. I mean, I watch these true crime things on HBO and different places. They're hugely popular. Mm-hmm. The most popular crime podcasts are crime podcasts.
Yeah.
Because we're always interested in aberrant behavior.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing about Knoxville Girl, one of the things is it's sung from the perspective of the killer.
Mm-hmm. That's strange.
It is strange. You think about Pretty Polly. It's narrative just saying what is going on. Pretty Polly is, I think, the scariest of all of them.
Really?
Because that's and with a lot of these are kind of warnings. Pretty Polly is sort of like Little Red Riding Hood. Don't trust strangers. Mm. She goes to meet this guy that's wooed her, and she goes up in the middle of the night. They're going to supposedly run away, and when she meets him, she looks, and he's already dug her grave.
Oh, wow.
And it's clear from that moment that she's not going to last through the end of the song.
Wow.
But, yeah, I talked with Ralph Stanley from the Stanley Brothers, and, of course, he did all sorts of stuff later on. But that's one that he and I both talked about a lot because it's just scary as all get out.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's lasted, again, since the 1600s.
Wow. That one has a similar origin? Was it also handed out?
We don't know the origin of Pretty Polly. Pretty Polly may have just been, totally made up.
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, I thought the Knoxville Girl was probably just made up.
Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering how this historian even knew how to trace down who it was.
Well, he went back through, the Knoxville Girl had gone through many iterations before arriving in Knoxville.
Mm-hmm.
The Wexford Girl, the Dover Girl, the Oxford Girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, it started out as the Bloody Miller. And the Berkshire Tragedy is another one that's like a variation. Mm. But once he got to the Bloody Miller, he started looking back and trying to find out where this came from. And then, when I talked to him, he said, we have records of everything in England. Mm. So, church records, he found it. And what was interesting is, in the song, you never know why he killed her. He says, "You'll never be my bride," and you don't know it's because, she didn't want to be, or he didn't want to marry her. Mm. But in the original story, she's pregnant. Mm-hmm. And there was a child born named Ichabod. Which is the name means like misfortune.
Oh my!
But he was. There's actual records of him being born. Nothing after that, and of course we don't know if he was born before the murder or they found her and managed to deliver her, the baby before. Whoa! While they could still live. So who knows?
Wow. Well, it's a wild thing to learn about. You may. If people watching, you may catch an artist performing this. If you're listening to a folk set, they might throw this in there. Now you know a little bit about how awful and gruesome, but wide and popular.
Yeah, well, there was a British group called the Knoxville Girls.
Oh yeah. Oh, and there's all these spinoffs too. I mean, I've heard people perform it from the woman's perspective. Mm-hmm. And Knoxville Museum of Art just had that exhibit that was the Revenge of the Knoxville Girl, and it's a girl who looks like she crawled out of a river and is holding a severed man's head.
Yeah.
It was an incredible exhibit. It's sadly down now, but if you look it up, it was very well done. It was like a full room size puppet.
Yeah,
of
that's
this scene.
The artist Wayne White, and he's the guy that designed the sets for Pee Wee's Playhouse. He's done all sorts of stuff, lots of videos. I think.
Super cool.
But yeah, he's a tremendous artist.
Yeah.
And one of those guys that just follows it wherever it leads him.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming in to tell us a little bit about the history of the Knoxville Girl. Y'all at home, you can go add that to your listening repertoire. Add that to your playlists. One of those iterations of it. The Louvin Brothers version is probably the most popular, so that's a good one to add. And we'll be coming right back to continue talking about ways that stories are captured through songs. Keep listening. We're back, and we're continuing to talk about songs as vehicles for storytelling. And I want to introduce you to a storyteller who's going to be performing some personal stories coming up. Nancy, hello.
Hi.
You want to tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing in here?
Well, I'm going to sing some songs I wrote. They tend to be stories about everything, about a lot of family stories I write about.
And you've been doing Knoxville music for a minute. You're a founding member of Tennessee Sheiks, who still perform. That's a really beloved local band. What other bands and projects have you been a part of?
Mostly, I'm not in the Sheiks anymore, but at the beginning, like Don Castle and I were like a duo, and then we were Strange Company for a while, and then we had 4 people, and it's kind of grown. There's about 8 people in the band now.
Yeah, it's a big troupe.
Yeah. Real good musicians.
Yeah.
Everybody's great instrumentalists.
And you've been having projects since before that, is that right? You've had some other bands you played in.
For a long time, I was in a duo called Diamonds in the Rough, and that was me and Rebecca Bryant. And then we didn't sing for a long time till recently. We just played for something. We kind of had a reunion, and we're going to do more stuff too. So,
yeah, and you're still playing. You seem like you're still playing pretty regularly, and one is this upcoming Thursday. There's a project that Knoxville's Poet Laureate's putting together called the I Am Tennessee. It's like a declaration.
Right.
Different artists writing declarations about what it means to be from here, and you're the only musician, I think, in that collection. Is that right? Or you're the only person doing songs in the collection. You can talk about like how you got approached to do that project and what you wrote.
Linda Parsons, I guess she called me and asked me, or she might have emailed me if I wanted to do it, and I said, well, I write songs, but I don't really say them. I mostly play them. And she said, okay. So, okay. That's how that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to hear one of these songs, and then we'll get into talking more. But I'd love to hear your style. And this is one of the songs, right, that's in the collection, in the poetry collection?
Yeah.
Sweet.
That's the 2 I'm going to do today.
Okay.
Like, I write other kind of styles and stuff. I've written a song that's kind of a swing song.
Yeah.
But
it's mostly this, like, personal storytelling style.
Yeah.
That's what you do. Sweet.
The swing song was kind of, that was kind of a story, too, but it was kind of generic.
Yeah, yeah.
But this one's about my great-grandmother coming over from Ireland, and I had a cousin who told me all about her one day, and I was working at a school where I was asking kids to interview older people, like a grandparent or a neighbor or something, and my cousin had just told me about Kate Sullivan, like coming over from Ireland to America. So after the first class, I came home and I just was sitting in my car and I just wrote this whole song. It just came like from what he had told me.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
When the moment strikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
It just gets in your head and go for it.
Yeah. Well, let's hear it.
Okay. All right. Kate Sullivan.
Kate Sullivan.
My name is Kate Sullivan, and I came from Ireland over to America in 1859. And I was only 8 years old. We sailed on a great big ship across the Atlantic Ocean. And when the storms blew across the sea, we tied ourselves on board. We were bound for America, land of opportunity, leaving our homeland behind us. My father was a railroad man. We lived on a railroad car. We traveled south as the tide were lane. From Bristol through the mountains we journeyed each day until we settled in Knoxville. And when the storms blew across the sea, we tied ourselves on board. We were bound for America, land of opportunity, leaving our homeland behind.
That is so. It's so interesting to listen to your like personal family history in a song.
I love it. That's really what gets in my head. That's what I want to write about.
Can you talk about your how your songwriting method? It usually comes out as these narrative stories. Like, what does songwriting usually look like for you?
I'll get something in my head. Like that one, I wrote that, and it hadn't been too long before that my cousin had told me about Kate coming over when she was real young. She was died in 1926. I didn't get to know her, but I just got her in my head somehow. And I saw a picture of her, and I knew that he said that she and her husband were tailors, and they made clothes for rich people.
Yeah.
So that got in my head. But the whole thing about tying themselves on board, that really got in my head. Because you think they're on these wooden ships coming across the Atlantic Ocean, and it's a pretty choppy sea there.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting the way that songs can help capture a story into something bite-sized and transmittable, something that can spread. Like your grandchildren can, someday one of them's going to learn it.
Yeah.
They just probably are. One of them's going to learn it and perform it and pass it downwards in a way that stories don't always transfer as well without music.
Yeah. I think because you can get the melody in your head, and it'll kind of stick there.
Yeah.
So I know I was playing it in I used to do the choir at John 23rd, the Catholic Student Center, and there's a little boy, Leo, he was about 2 or 3 at the time, and I played that. They came to the Irish Fest, and they were out there dancing, and his dad said, "Were you singing a song about tying yourself on a ship or something?" And he said, "Leo's singing it." So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
He was 3 then. He's about 6, I think, now. But
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming in and sharing your songwriting, sharing a song, performing in here.
Thanks
It's
for
so
asking
lovely to
me.
hear music in this space.
This is a good space.
Yeah, it's a wonderful space for it. That's all. I'm gonna have you maybe play that last song just as we go out here. You have one more song that you're performing also on this Thursday.
So this song's called 1122 Kenyon Avenue, and it's about how she was going to have to move from where she lived, and her neighbor said, whose name was Stella, like Streetcar Named Desire, Blanche and Stella. Yeah, my daughter's name's Stella too.
Oh yeah.
But she said, "There's a house that's for sale next door to me, and it's still there. It's not in great shape now, but it's 1122 Kenyon Avenue, and that's the name of the song."
Nice. Well, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Stella called her best friend Blanche. She said the house next door is for sale. You should come and see it, Blanche. It's sweet, come on and see it right now.
Thank you so much for listening. If you would like to go see some storytelling through song in person, in real life, which would be my recommendation, Nancy is performing tonight at the East Tennessee Historical Society at 6:30. They're launching a book that's a collection of stories about what it means to be from Tennessee, and she's going to be performing 2 of her songs at that event. This podcast is produced by Daniel Bignot, and the music you're listening to is made by Will Carter over at Eleanor Studios. And I'm Jillian Taylor, who performed this act. That's all for today. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another story about Knoxville's music scene. Send me pitches anytime at jtaylor9@wbr.com. I'm going to leave you with my final recommendation for your life, because I'm just a girl sitting behind a microphone who is begging you to go see a live music act. Could be tonight.